Hey guys, thank you for watching the SlatRock channel. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon to get notified every time we post a new video. And if you've already done so, just make sure that it's still active. Guys, today we present you with 7 WWE wrestlers who absolutely hated Brock Lesnar. Number 7. Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy's wrestling career has been like a stock that's constantly moving up and down. He's enjoyed some big-time lows, but also some of the highest highs. With that said, Matt is also a huge pro wrestling fan, so he hasn't exactly shied away from his feelings regarding certain superstars in the past, and one of them was Brock. According to Hardy, the first time that Brock beat the hell out of the Hardys, compared to the Brock that took on Matt Hardy version 1, was very different behind the scenes. In his initial program with the Hardys, Brock was said to be very respectable, constantly thanking the team for putting him over. However, the two would clash once again later on, this time with Brock as the face of the company. A match between the two was hyped up for 2 weeks, only to finish with a bout. Matt was hot with his new gimmick, so he suggested a competitive match, while Lesnar was having none of it, wanting to squash Hardy in the encounter. Matt was very critical about how big Brock's head got once he started to muster up lots of success in the company. Number 6. Curt Angle. Although Curt had been gone from the WWE for more than a decade, it feels like he never left following his long-awaited return. He gave the WWE Universe another tremendous moment at the Hall of Fame ceremony, and the WWE followed that up with naming Angle as the GM of Raw. This decision has re-energized the WWE Universe, along with giving Angle a new lease on life. Since returning, Curt has taken part in several interviews, and one of them happened to be on Talk is Jericho. During the podcast interview, Curt recalled his encounter with Brock, and he was quite blunt, assessing Brock's amateur wrestling skills, calling him a terrible wrestler. Back in the day, the two got into an amateur wrestling match, with Curt winning the bout 1-0. According to Angle, Brock only had one move, which he would counter time and time again. Angle claims Brock wasn't experienced enough, although he did claim that if he was, he would have lost the encounter easily given Lesnar's scary size. Number 5. Jim Cornette. You're right, Jim is by no means a wrestler, but hey, he has a lot to comment on Brock, which is why he just made the list. If you listen to Jim Cornette rant about the wrestling business since leaving the WWE, you know that he doesn't shy away from holding any punches. One wrestler he was very critical about was Brock, ripping him on various occasions. The bad blood between the two went all the way back to their OVW days, when Cornette was a trainer and Brock was just starting. Jim was instantly rubbed the wrong way looking at Brock's lack of knowledge for the business and just doing it for the money. Things would, however, completely spiral later on during a dark match, which featured a spot that saw Lesnar press slam Cornette's wife. The issue here was that Jim's wife had a piercing taken care of in her nether regions, so she requested that Brock let up on the slam. Brock ended up going the opposite route, and it created a mess backstage with Cornette telling Lesnar he was not going to fight him, but shoot him. Brock apologized for his actions, but it didn't help his cause with Cornette, who's been quite critical of Lesnar throughout the years. Number 4. Ken Shamrock. Ken's comments for Brock Lesnar were quite mixed, with some good and some bad when discussing Lesnar's MMA career. Shamrock claims he wasn't surprised that Lesnar made the jump given his amateur background, but Ken was critical with other components, particularly Brock's ability to adapt. According to Ken, it's all about adapting once you're on top, and the competition starts getting better. Ken claims Brock failed to do so, although Shamrock did blame the UFC for rushing Brock in too quickly and not giving him enough time to settle in and marinate inside of the octagon. Ken claims had that been done, Lesnar could have been one of the greatest ever. Ken ended his assessment claiming Lesnar was mentally weak, which caused his downward spiral in the sport. Shamrock dismissed Lesnar's illness of diverticulitis, claiming that wasn't the root of his struggles. Number 3. Chris Jericho. Being in the business after all these years, many backstage have a huge amount of respect for Chris Jericho and all that he's accomplished in the wrestling business. One guy, however, who didn't seem to give a damn was Brock Lesnar, as the two got into a heated exchange following Brock's SummerSlam match against Randy Orton. The match was ultra-violent, and Jericho was none too pleased backstage, feeling that Lesnar was taking liberties with his good friend Randy. To make things worse, Jericho knew Orton's family was out there, and being a family man himself, Y2J knew how hard it must have been for his wife and kids to watch Orton take such a beating. Jericho had a few words for Brock after the match, and it led to a verbal exchange between the two. Chris also said, "When I see a friend of mine lying in a pool of his own blood, whether it's a work or not, that's real. That's a real concussion that he suffered. So I want to go check and see if he's okay. I said something and he said something, next thing you know, we're nose to nose yelling at each other and it diffused fairly quickly." Orton commented on the ordeal, claiming he appreciated Jericho's concern for him. Thankfully for Chris, the exchange did not turn into something violent because that would not have been pretty. Number 2. Dean Ambrose. The usually very quiet and low-key Dean Ambrose was one of the first New Era wrestlers to speak ill of Brock. For Dean, it was a chance of a lifetime to take on Brock at the biggest WrestleMania in history. However, the outcome was nothing to write home about, and the experience was quite forgettable. Dean let out all the juicy details during the Stone Cold podcast. Ambrose made a claim similar to Roman that the match was put together at the last minute, and that all of his requests were basically shut down by Brock and Paul. Ambrose was infuriated with the preparation, and the match was basically all put together on the spot in front of the audience. The match was insanely short, with little to be remembered aside from Dean losing the bout. It's a shame that on such a platform the match failed to deliver. Good for Dean, however, for having the courage to say what really went on behind the scenes at WrestleMania 32. Number 1. Curt Hennig. We all know about the plane ride from hell. Many infamous incidents took place, but probably the most famous incident stemming from the plane ride from hell was the skirmish between Mr. Perfect Curt Hennig and future superstar Brock Lesnar. Hennig had returned to the company in January, which itself was a controversial move. Hennig performed well at the Royal Rumble and was given another chance, although he would pass away the following year due to his own addictions. Lesnar had been groomed for superstardom since he was still in college, and the WWF was very careful about handling him. He was signed very young, trained in OVW, and officially brought to the main roster in 2002 and protected. Hennig and Lesnar were both from Minnesota and had trained together at Brad Rennigan's school before Lesnar even went to OVW. They knew each other well. Hennig was a very competitive person by nature, and on this flight, got the bright idea to challenge Wrestler to take him down in an amateur wrestling match, on a plane. Stories have grown over the years to call this a fight, which it was not. It was a friendly challenge instigated by an inebriated Curt Hennig and reluctantly accepted by a naive Lesnar. If it happened today, Lesnar would have immediately gotten up and gladly welcomed the challenge. Back then, however, the young Lesnar didn't really know how to handle the situation. He didn't want to do it, but he was told by those around him that if he didn't get up and do it, he'd develop a reputation as a chicken. Lesnar got up, and since he wasn't as inebriated as Hennig, he may have actually been completely sober, he took him down. More than once. While it's an exaggeration to say that it turned into a fight, it did turn more and more serious with each takedown. Hennig was a jokester and kept egging him on to take him down. Lesnar is competitive by nature as well. Eventually, it got to a point where David Finlay and Paul Heyman had to intervene and stop them. A key part of the story is that they tussle near the emergency exit door. Stories that Lesnar was ramming him against the door were exaggerated, although there were some on the plane who definitely got scared that it would burst open in mid-flight, which would have been fatal and disastrous. The reality is, those doors are virtually impossible to open without intervention from the staff, and that wasn't going to happen, even with someone the size of Lesnar, or Hennig for that matter, ramming against it. Hennig was later fired for the incident. He was also spraying shaving cream on people on the flight, including Big Show. Hennig expressed his hate for Brock Lesnar until his death a year later. Well guys, that's our list. Can you think of any other WWE wrestlers who absolutely hated Brock Lesnar? Drop us a comment down below. If you liked this video, check out our previous video, 8 WWE wrestlers you probably didn't know Stone Cold hated the most. And also check out our other high-rated videos by clicking at the upper right-hand corner or down in the description field. If you did like this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button for more content just like this, hit that bell icon to get notified every time we post a new video. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and as always, thanks for watching.